Okay, so we've gotten to the point here we need to go ahead and design our login screen. So what we see here is exactly what our login screen is going to look like. For me, I consider this to be really beautiful. Well, I'll leave you to be the judge. So one of the reasons a lot of people love Flutter is because of the flexibility it gives you in designing your apps, just the way you conceptualize it. So this is what our login screen is going to look like. So without much ado, let's get right into it. So just to ensure that everything is properly organized, I'm going to go ahead and close all of these tabs that we don't need anymore. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and create a login screen. So this is going to be a new .dat file. So we're going to create it in the screens folder and select new .dat file. So I'm going to call this login page actually. Alright. Now the next thing I'm going to do will be to create a stateless widget. So I'm going to call this login page. Alright. So before we continue with our design, let's consider the structure our design is going to follow. So I'm going to pull up the completed login page. So for us to be able to arrive at this design, we're going to have a scaffold and we're going to have a body element. So the body element is going to contain probably a safe area. Then we're going to have a column. So inside of the column, we're going to have our image, we're going to have a test widget, we're going to have some size boxes, to create these spaces. And this is going to be a text field, this is going to be a button, and we'll customize the button to have, these rounded edges. And then we'll have a flat button here to take us to a new page. So that's actually the flow of our design. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and add a scaffold first of all. So the background of the scaffold is going to be white. Alright. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add the body property. So it is going to take in a column. Alright, so inside of the column, the first thing we're going to have is a size box with a height of 70. Now the next thing we're going to add will be an image. So this image widget has the alignment set to center and the height and width is 100 pixels each. Now the next thing we need to add will be the image we want to display inside of this widget. So we have our logo.png. So this is the image that we're going to display inside of our image widget. Okay, so now we have our image. Now the next thing we need to do will be to add this space. So this is going to be another size box. Now the next thing we are going to add will be a test widget. So the test reads sign in as a writer and the test alignment is set to center as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some style to it. So the first thing will be the font size. The font size is going to be 25 and the font family is going to be the bold version of our font. If you remember properly, we called it brand bold. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add our test fields. Alright, so this is for email address. Now the next thing we need to do will be to add the decoration. So the label test is going to be email address. And we're going to set some style for the label. So we're going to have test style. So we're going to set the font size to be 14. So we'll set the hint style as well. And the color is going to be color.gray. And the font size for the hint is going to be 10.0. Okay, so what I'm going to do will be to fold all of this up, and I'm going to go ahead and set the style, the main style of our test field. The font size is going to be 14 as well. Alright, so we have our email address. So I'm going to add a size box, more like some space, and then I can easily go ahead and copy all of this, the email test field, and paste it here. So I'm going to remove the keyboard type. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and say obscure text equal to true. Then I can finally go ahead and add a size box, another size box. The height is going to be 40. Okay, so let's go ahead and see the progress that we've made with our design. So currently our app is set to show our main page first of all. So to change this, we're going to go into our main.dat. Alright, so instead of having main page here, I'm going to change this to login page. So eventually we'll get to the point where we need to set up our route so that we won't need to change this all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and restart our application. Okay, so this is what we have. So as you can see, this is really far away from the design that we are really happy about to create. So let's go ahead and continue so that we can make it look much more better. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add all of this inside of a separate column. So I'm going to have a column. So I'm going to go ahead and pad this up. Alright. It's supposed to be password. Now the next thing we need to add will be our button. So we're going to go ahead and make use of a raised button. So we're going to have a raised button. Okay, so I went ahead to add a raised button. So the raised button has the shape of a rounded rectangle border, and the border radius is 12 pixels, which is exactly what we have here. So the color of the button is going to be green, and the text color is going to be white. And we added a child to it, and the child is a text widget that reads login, and the font size is 18 and the font family is brand bold. So I'm going to go ahead and hit hot reload to show our button. Alright, so what I'm going to do will be to go ahead and add a center widget here. Okay, so this is not all I want. So I want to be able to set a height for this button. So what I'm going to do will be to go ahead and wrap our center widget inside of a container, and I'm going to set the height of the container to be 50. So because we haven't added the onPressed function or the onPressed callback, that is why our button is currently gray in color. So I'm going to go ahead and set the onPressed callback and hit hot reload. Alright, so this is what our button looks like. So what I can do is to go ahead and add this raise button inside of this column. This is where it should have been. Okay, so this looks a lot better. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and add a text that is going to read, "Don't have an account, sign up here." Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this inside a widget, and the widget is going to be a flat button. Alright, now the next thing we need to do will be to add the onPressed callback. Bam, so we have that. Now the next thing I'm going to do will be to wrap all of this inside a single child scroll view. But before I do that, I'm going to first of all add some padding. So let's see how this looks. A lot better. So I'm going to wrap the padding inside a single child scroll view. So why it's very important that we make use of this single child scroll view is while we're using our app in a physical device. If you try to provide input inside of the text field, you may not be able to slide up where we can actually see what we are typing inside of the text field. So that's why it's very useful to make use of single child scroll views. Now the next thing I'm going to do will be to wrap up everything here inside of a safe area. So before we wrap up with our login design, one thing that we need to change is the color of the button. So what I've done is to compile all the colors that we're going to be using throughout the application. I put it inside a file. So you can find the file in your resources folder as well. So if I open up resources, you'll be able to see a file called brand colors. So I'm going to go ahead and use Ctrl+C to copy this file. I'm going to go ahead and drop it inside of our lib folder. Right, so these are all the colors that we're going to be making use of throughout the application. So instead of us having to spend time thinking about the color to use, we can easily go ahead and reference these colors. So let's go ahead and see how we are going to make use of each of these colors. So inside of the login page where we have our button, our raise button, So instead of using green, I can simply go ahead and make use of brand colors dot green. Alright. Bravo guys, we successfully designed the login screen. Now in the next class, we're going to go ahead and design the registration screen. So this will be all for now. See you in the next class.